My mother used to have a relationship with a domineering boss. A tragic love story among the rich and powerful, full of misunderstandings. She was heartbroken and chose to leave the domineering boss and fall in love with my dad. But in the 7th year after I was born, the domineering boss appeared again. He held the forged medical record and begged his mother to spend his last moments with him. While saying that she would never forgive me, my mother packed her things and asked my father and me to wait for her at home. It has been 10 years since I left. During this period, Dad was targeted by the domineering boss in various ways, and eventually an accident happened. After my father passed away, she finally remembered me, her only daughter. 1. When my mother appeared in front of me again, more than half a month had passed since my father passed away. I am only 17 years old, not yet an adult, and must have a guardian. It was only when the police reminded her that she had a daughter that she finally learned the news of her father's death. After 10 years, my mother returned to her former home. She wore her favorite red dress, held hands with the man, and bowed in front of her father's portrait. Then they walked up to me together. She said, "Aria, Mom is here to take you home." Go home? But isn't this my home? Listening to her words, I found it ironic. So I asked her, "Which home?" She was stunned for a moment, and I continued to ask her, "Your home? Dad's home? Or the home of the man next to you?" She heard the sarcasm in my words and felt even more guilty. She lowered her head and cried silently. The man felt very distressed and hugged her and coaxed her. He said I was young, immature, and spoke without restraint. She nodded, wiped her tears, leaned in the other's arms, and said she didn't blame me. And at this moment, Dad's portrait was placed in front of them. Ironic, right? 2. But I left with them anyway. She wiped away her tears and got into the luxury car without any reluctance. Because I have to take revenge. Dad is just an ordinary person in this world. Without the halo of the protagonist, he cannot compete with the male protagonist Henry King. Over a period of 10 years, Henry tortured him to death. Before my father died, he held my hand and gave me repeated instructions. "Aria, don't be sad and don't be angry. This is fate. We are not strong enough, that's why you don't have a mother. And that's why we are bullied. But it's good to be alive, it's good to be alive. But as long as we are alive, there must always be hope." Thoughts return. I looked at my mother beside me. She held my hand all the way and was reluctant to let go. And she kept chattering. "Aria, you loved pink the most when you were a child, so I specially decorated a princess room for you. You will definitely like it. The new house has a big yard full of roses. The bright red ones are very pretty. You can pick some and put them in your room. By the way, I remember you like dancing. When we get home, I'll hire a teacher to teach you how to dance, okay? You can tell Mom anything else you like." When she said this, her eyes were full of caution, afraid that I would be unhappy. Seems like he really wants to make it up to me. Pity. I don't like pink anymore. Henry is doing bad things. There were always problems with Dad's work, and the family had no money, so we couldn't buy new clothes. It is difficult to wash a pink skirt once it gets dirty. It's better to use black. If you fall and bleed, you won't be able to see it. Also, I hate roses. Henry always messes up his father's work and suppresses him in various ways. In order to supplement the family income, I went to Uncle Lee's rose garden to help pick roses without telling my father. But someone maliciously pushed him into the flowers. Roses have thorns and I was scratched all over and it hurt a lot. That day Dad cried very sadly. He hugged me and said sorry over and over again, saying that he shouldn't have let me get hurt. But how can he be blamed for this? To blame. It's also Henry's fault. He was so jealous and crazy that he wanted to destroy my face. And dancing, I can't do it either. 5 years ago, at Henry's instruction, the gangsters took sticks and blocked Dad at the alley entrance, saying they would break his legs and make him a cripple forever. The system couldn't bear it anymore, so it told me. I happened to be nearby at the time. After calling the police and hearing the wailing, I rushed over to protect my father. The other party is crazy. My shin bones were broken and I can never dance again. And all this is thanks to Henry. As for Mila, right, my mother, isn't she also an accomplice? Every single thing is filled with blood and tears. At this moment I looked at her, hiding the hatred in my eyes. He just chuckled and nodded. I like everything my mother arranges. 3. She was very happy about this, and so was Henry. He casually handed me a black card and told me, "As long as you don't make your mother angry, I will cover you no matter what you do, whether it's getting into trouble outside or squandering money." The King family is the business leader in the imperial capital, and Henry is the protagonist of this world. With his protection, you will never have to worry about food and clothing in your life. If I were just a bystander, if I hadn't experienced it myself, perhaps I would smile flatteringly, say that they are really a perfect match, then happily accept the black card and think about the good times in the future. In fact, I did just that. He said yes obediently and put the card in his pocket for safekeeping. Seeing this, a hint of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. My mother hugged me tighter and promised me again and again, "Aria, you are my only daughter. I will love you with my life." She had a tragic love affair with a domineering boss, committed suicide by jumping into the sea, and was kidnapped, which caused her to have serious health problems. After I was born, the doctor told me that I would never get pregnant again. To this day, I am her only daughter, and she has abandoned me for 10 whole years. So, her guilt towards me has now reached its peak and completely overwhelmed her. After arriving at the villa, she took my hand and walked me to the room. He also brought a pillow and quilt and said he wanted to sleep with me at night. Henry's eyes were filled with helplessness and doting. I also nodded, looking expectantly, and looked at her cautiously. I haven't slept with my mom in a long time. After hearing what I said, the guilt in my mother's eyes became even more intense. She said, "I will always be with you from now on, and we will never be apart again." I nodded with tears in my eyes and said, "That's great." I made an excuse to take a shower, looked at myself covered in scars in the mirror, and wiped away my tears bit by bit. I also picked out a very transparent pajamas. After changing into them, I sat on the bed, deliberately exposing half of my arms. Mom is looking at the dance teacher's resume. She pointed at one of them and asked me, "Aria, this teacher Scott is a well-known dancer in the country, and the students she has trained are also very good. If you think you can do it, Mom will invite her to come and let her teach you to dance." Before she could finish her words, she had already noticed the injuries on my body. The pajamas were very transparent, and the scars on his arms and body were clearly visible. "Aria, what are these injuries?" Mom dropped her phone, grabbed my wrist, and rolled up my sleeves. When she saw the scars on my arms, her eyes were filled with pain. "Oh my God! Why do you have so many wounds on your body?" "Aria, tell Mom. How have you been doing these years? Has Alexander Hernandez been very bad to you these past few years?" "Alexander is the best father in the world to me, and the woman in front of me is the person in this world who has no right to judge him." I suppressed my bitterness and anger and told her, "My father is very good to me. No one treats me better than him. But I am unlucky. I have always been injured since I was a child. Sometimes when I walk on the road, I will be pushed by someone. When I fall, there will be a piece of broken glass on the ground, and the broken glass will scratch my leg. Or at other times, a blade falls from a tree or upstairs, and I put my hand to cover my face, and my arm will be scratched." As I spoke, I smiled at her helplessly. Since my mother can be the heroine of the novel, the author will naturally give her some intelligence. At least she will be suspicious about these little things. Besides, Henry is a lunatic. The beloved woman had a child with another man, and when the child was young, he looked more like the man. So he was jealous and crazy. I even thought about killing the child. At the very least, this face must be ruined. If there were no system, perhaps there would still be a me who would die. Wait till you grow up. My face looked more like my mother's, so Henry gave up and didn't hit me again. But these injuries on my body are destined to never heal in this lifetime. I caught a glimpse of the thoughtfulness in her eyes, but pretended not to notice it, and then continued speaking. "Dad said I was pretty lucky when I was a kid. But then you left. I was always hurt, and so was Dad. He was also beaten for no apparent reason. Some things should be said only to the point. If you talk too much, you won't achieve the desired effect." After hearing what I said, my mother's eyes were filled with more guilt. She reached out and gently stroked my face and said to me, "Aria, I'm sorry for not being able to participate in your growth, but I won't do that again in the future. No one can bully my Aria." This is exactly what I want. I want her guilt to become a knife in my hand to avenge my father. After seeing the determination in her eyes, I said I was very tired, lay down first, and pretended to fall asleep. After a while, I heard some movement beside the bed. My mother opened her cell phone and called someone. The voice was muffled. She said, "Help me investigate something." A few days later, my mother has always been with me. Even if Henry showed up, she would not leave me to be with him. Instead, she would give me the cold shoulder. Henry didn't understand what was going on, so he turned his gaze to me. When no one was around, he asked me, "What did you say to your mother?" Henry is very sharp, but I am not intimidated by him. With eyes wide open and full of innocence, she asked him, "What happened?" He was stunned, as if he suddenly remembered that all the dirty things he had done were done in secret in order not to let his mother know. So I should not know about it either. After all, I'm only 16 years old now. Henry's expression relaxed a little, no longer showing the suspicion he had before. He just added, "You are a grown-up girl now, don't bother your mother for no reason." I nodded and said okay. Then at night, when my mother came to me again with a quilt in her arms, I decisively locked the door. No matter how my mother called me, I didn't say a word. I curled up on the balcony alone, crying silently. Finally, the door was kicked open. My mother rushed in, saw me in the corner, hugged me distressedly, and then turned to question Henry. "You promised to treat Aria well and as your own daughter. What do you mean now? Are you trying to bully my daughter while I'm not paying attention? Henry loves her, and love can make people bow their heads." He quickly explained, "How could I bully Aria? I just said that she is a grown-up girl and should have her own things to do. No matter how old she is still my daughter." Mom refuted him without thinking. Then she continued, "Henry, I left you 10 years ago, abandoning Alexander and Aria. I haven't been able to sleep at night in these years. Now Alexander is gone, and I only have Aria as my daughter. We all owe her. If you dare to bully her, I will never forgive you." These words sound somewhat touching, but I know the woman in front of me too well. Love comes first. The reason why you protect me like this now is just because you feel guilty. When Henry heard her words, he nodded repeatedly and promised that he would never bully me again. Even apologized to me. Not only that, he discussed with my mother and decided to hold a party for me. "Aria, since we are going to live together in the future, we must explain your identity to the outside world. I will hold a banquet in a few days and announce that you are our daughter, the eldest daughter of the King family. In the future, no one in this circle will dare to bully you." Henry looked at his mother cautiously as he said this. Mom nodded, her expression softening a lot. "Aria, I will hire a teacher to teach you how to dance in advance. Then at the banquet you will shine." I lowered my eyes and looked at my legs. I haven't worn a skirt since that incident. Nature. No one knows that I have a very ugly scar on my leg, which looks like a centipede winding and twisted. But I nodded anyway. I will also send an invitation to that woman in advance and invite her to the party. Henry and his mother's not. In addition to his deceased father, there is also Henry's first love. That woman is truly perfect. It is so perfect that to this day, Henry still regards her as a goddess in his heart, but his mother regards her as a thorn in her heart and always feels resentful about it. It would be interesting if the three of them met again. This banquet. I'm really looking forward to it. The banquet was grand. Tonight, almost all the business tycoons in the entire imperial capital are here. My mother is very satisfied with this level of attention. She finally smiled again. Still clenching his fist, he punched Henry lightly on the chest. "Henry, since you've been so attentive to Aria, I'll forgive you this time." Henry was very happy about this. He said, "Mila, I will always make you so happy." Then he looked at me, his eyes softening. "Aria, from now on you are my daughter." I didn't say anything, pretending to lower my head to adjust my skirt, waiting for the show to begin. The process of the banquet is very simple. Henry took his mother to the stage and briefly recounted their love story, blurring my identity so that everyone would mistakenly believe that I was their daughter. Then, under the gaze of everyone, I walked onto the stage step by step. Everyone exclaimed as expected. She said I was very pretty and looked like my mom, but even more like my dad. It was just a compliment. In fact, no matter what I look like, it's all to please Henry. However, he certainly wouldn't be happy to hear this. Henry's smile faded. He suppressed his anger and urged on to the next step. Next, all the lights went out. I stood in the center of the stage with the spotlight shining on me. I bowed to the audience. Then the music started and I started dancing. The dance is not difficult. I did this just to prove to the outside world that I am a multi-talented person. Henry's daughter naturally cannot be an ordinary girl. My mother stood in front of me, clapping continuously with tears in her eyes. It seems like relief but also like guilt. I smiled at her and then spun around. I accidentally stepped on the hem of her skirt and fell off the stage like a kite with a broken string. Aria! My mother screamed and rushed to me. The hem of the skirt that I stepped on was torn because of this accident, revealing her bloody calf. Your legs! My mother looked at the blood on my calf and immediately fell to the ground. Henry frowned and quickly asked someone to call the family doctor. As for me, I sat in my mother's arms crying quietly. I'm sorry. Mom, it's my fault. My calf was injured but I didn't want to disappoint you. I thought I could hold on. I'm sorry for embarrassing you. I lowered my eyes and tears fell one by one. The trick of showing weakness and acting obedient always works well in the world of novels. My mother kept shaking her head and couldn't help crying either. She pointed at my calf and even her voice trembled. Aria, what's wrong with your calf? I lowered my head and looked at the scar on my leg. It rained heavily that night, and my father carried me on his back and walked in the rain for a long time. I don't have enough money to go to the hospital for surgery. The doctor stared at my face and made another call. When he came back, he said there was no anesthetic and asked me if I could hold on. Fortunately, I held on. It was just a sutured wound, crooked. After so many years, the scar looks like an ugly centipede. In fact, I know that there has always been anesthetics, but the people behind this private hospital told me not to use it. They just wanted to see me suffer. I remember them all. So when faced with my mother's question, I bit my lip tightly as if I was struggling. After a long while, he finally spoke. Before, a group of hooligans wanted to beat up my dad. Beat him up and I jumped on them and they broke my shin bone. When I got to the hospital, the doctor said there was no anesthesia, and the wound was stitched crookedly. The doctor said I was not obedient enough, so they couldn't stitch it properly. Having said that, I grabbed my mother's wrist, my eyes full of pain. Mom, I didn't move on purpose. It just hurts so much. It hurts so much. Still just enough. My mother hugged me and pushed Henry away fiercely, her eyes full of anger. She said, Aria is my bottom line. Unfortunately, before she could finish her words, a woman appeared and took away all of her mother's attention. Ella Baker, why did you return home? My mother stared at her intently, and even I, who was in great pain in her arms, was completely forgotten by her. She stood up, looked at Ella Baker in front of her, then turned to look at Henry. Okay. After all these years, you two are still connected. After saying that, my mother wiped her tears, turned around and ran out. Mila! Henry exclaimed, and even though he didn't understand the situation yet, he still followed. As for me, I just sat on the ground, forgotten by everyone. Are you sad? A voice suddenly sounded in my ear. I looked up and saw a handsome young man bending over and reaching out to me. I stood up with his help, looked at him and said, It's expected. What's there to be sad about? He chuckled and introduced himself. Hello, I'm Sebastian King, Henry's nephew. 5. As the male protagonist of this world, Henry's growth must be extremely bumpy. The mother had no background and the father was the head of the King family. The two people who should not have known each other struck up a love affair and gave birth to Henry. But Henry's father already has a wife and a son. Like all the bloody plots. When his legal wife came to visit, Henry's mother suffered a hemorrhage and died after giving birth to the child. As for Henry, his wife had someone throw him into the woods, wanting him to fend for himself. By the time Henry's father found out and went looking for him, he was gone. Several years later, they met by chance and Henry returned to his roots, vowing to take back everything he had lost. Naturally, he and his wife's son are incompatible. But he does not have the halo of the protagonist, so he is destined to lose and even lose his life. Sebastian is the son of Henry's eldest brother. He was only 6 years old when his father died. As the eldest grandson of the King family, no matter what his father is like, Grandpa King will definitely protect him. But Henry hated Sebastian. His life is destined to be difficult. Sebastian took me to the hospital first, bandaged my wounds, and then drove me home. The doctor said that the wound is quite new. I said and asked him, "So?" Sebastian suddenly slammed on the brakes. Due to inertia, I leaned forward and then bounced back hard. The movement was too big, and the wound that had just been bandaged started to hurt again. But he was still smiling. "Aria Hernandez, you must hate Henry, right?" I didn't answer. He added, "Why don't we cooperate?" As for how to cooperate, 3 days later, with the permission of Mr. King, Sebastian came to stay in the villa in the name of accompanying me. And Henry has been busy coaxing his mother these days. Although she was unhappy, she didn't have time to deal with it because Sebastian moved in. Henry and his mother quarreled for several days. In the end, Henry managed to coax her into submission. My mother, who was no longer angry, finally remembered that I was still injured. She came to my room with guilt in her eyes, holding a bottle of medicine that I no longer needed. "Aria, I'm sorry." She just said these few words and then began to cry with her head down. If it was Henry, he would have held her in his arms by now and told her over and over again that it was not her fault. Then the mother really thought that it was not her fault. But I am not Henry, so I will not interrupt her, let alone speak out at this time. I will blame everything except her. Perhaps she noticed something strange. She raised her head and looked at me inexplicably. She felt somewhat embarrassed because no one was there to comfort her. She wiped her tears and held my hand again, saying, "Aria, the past is the past. I didn't know about those things in the past, but now you are by my side, and I will definitely protect you. No matter what, I will not let anyone hurt you in the future. But you should forget about the past, okay?" Forget? I pulled the corners of my mouth, wanting to reveal a sarcastic expression, but I still endured it and responded obediently, "Okay, Mom, I'll listen to you." My mother was very satisfied. She held my hand and talked a lot. Most of them are her past emotional experiences. A brave and kind girl was obsessed with countless men, but she only wanted ordinary freedom. In the end, she rejected those supporting men and walked towards the shining male protagonist. Unfortunately, this is a story about a man chasing his wife to the crematorium, and the male protagonist is destined to be imperfect. Her first love was a thorn in her heart, and even after so many years, she still felt resentful. This story lasted for a full hour. Mom sighed and then went on to talk about the King family, so I took the opportunity to bring up Sebastian. That boy looks only 2 years older than me. He really looks like Uncle Henry. If you say he is Uncle Henry's child, I would believe it. After saying that, I observed my mother's expression calmly. Then he continued, "And the other day when a woman appeared at the party, I don't know if it was my illusion, but Sebastian and her had similar features." The moment the words fell, my mother sat up straight. She reached out and grabbed my arm very hard. "Aria, do you really think they look alike?" I didn't nod immediately, and tried hard to pretend to recall. "Somewhat, but there are so many people who look alike in the world, it's normal." After saying that, I took my mother's hand and pointed to the alarm clock next to her. "It's late, time to go to bed." Closing my eyes and magnifying the doubts in my heart became my nightmare tonight. The next morning, when I woke up, my mother was sitting by the bed with big dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept well the whole night. She got up with me and walked out of the room with me. As I was about to go downstairs, Sebastian showed up. He was wearing a blue sweatshirt and had dimples at the corners of his mouth when he smiled. Coincidentally, Ella Baker also wore a blue evening dress when she appeared that day, and she also had 2 dimples when she smiled. So similar. Mom seemed very excited and rushed downstairs. When she ran to Sebastian, she suddenly thought of something and stopped, then turned around and went upstairs, muttering to herself as she walked, "No, I should believe him, believe him." Seeing her enter the room, I exchanged glances with Sebastian downstairs. Then in the afternoon, I left home with my mother, saying that I wanted to go shopping. Not far from the community, Sebastian and Ella Baker were walking together, talking and laughing. Oh, they're not the only ones. Henry, who had just got off work, parked his car on the side of the road and walked towards them. When my mother saw this scene, she almost bit her lip. "Henry, you're a liar." She was very emotional and opened the door of the cab and pulled the driver out. The driver didn't stand firmly and hit me directly. I already had an injury on my leg, and this time I fell directly to the ground. But Mom can't see it. She just kept repeating Henry is a big liar, while starting the car, then drove back to them and said to Henry, "I will never forgive you." Then he stepped on the accelerator and soon disappeared. Henry didn't understand, but looking at Ella Baker in front of him, he could probably guess a thing or two, so he immediately got in the car and started chasing his mother. The two people chased each other and disappeared. I got up, asked the driver to leave and went straight home. Sebastian soon caught up. She left. I didn't expect that she would be so cooperative. Hearing what I said, Sebastian paused slightly, then pulled me to a stop behind a hidden bush. Ella Baker and Henry were in love with each other, but problems arose in Baker's family, and she had to go abroad. Their relationship was put to the test. Then your mother appeared. She had eyes very similar to Ella Baker's, and she became Henry's lover. You should know what happened next, right? I nodded. It was the cliched plot of a domineering president chasing his wife, pinching her neck and saying she was just a stand-in. But when she left, he suddenly realized that the person he really loved was the stand-in. As for my first love, who was still abroad, he had been hated and abandoned by everyone without me noticing. Ella Baker returned to China, but she did not become the vicious female supporting role. Because my mother at that time broke away from the script, left that city, fell in love with my father, got a marriage certificate and gave birth to me. Henry was so angry that he announced that he was going to marry Ella Baker. The two of them even slept together. Yes, they slept together and got pregnant. Then, on the day of their wedding, Henry suddenly realized that he loved your mother and wanted to cancel his engagement with Ella Baker. The 3-month-old baby was also aborted due to an accident. Sebastian sneered and asked me, "If you were Ella Baker, and your feelings were toyed with, you lost your child, and even injured your body and could never have children again, would you want revenge? So this is where we can become allies. It doesn't matter about love as long as they die." 6. My mother is so familiar with running away from home. In just a few hours, she had already landed in another city, skillfully hiding her tracks, in a place full of birdsong and flowers, silently shedding tears, and then waiting for the man to appear. And it all happened too suddenly. After Henry left, the company was without a person in charge, and Mr. King was very unhappy. Sebastian walked out. No matter what the previous generation was like, when people get old, they start to miss their family. Sebastian is his only grandson now. Without Henry's suppression, Mr. King directly stuffed people into the company and started to deal with some urgent projects of the company. I didn't expect that you could complete so many tasks so well. Sebastian smiled at what I said. If I want to fight Henry, I have to have a better business acumen than him. If I can't do that, I'll be an ant on the ground and he can crush me to death at any time. So even if you are not a genius, you have to work hard enough. When this rare opportunity comes, seize it decisively and strive to demonstrate your value. Fortunately, he did it. But because of the protagonist's halo, it is destined not to be easy for Sebastian to take over the company. Henry had just gathered a few directors when he returned home with his mother in his arms. The two people reconciled as before, but a broken mirror is bound to have cracks. Therefore, Sebastian and I looked at each other and started Plan B. 7. Star City Cemetery. I had just placed a bunch of sunflowers on my father's grave when my mother came over. She pointed at the rose in her hand and said to me, "Aria, your father loves roses the most. When we first met, he said that I was as beautiful as a rose." As she spoke, she showed a shy expression. 3 days ago, I found my mother and suggested going back to my hometown to visit my father's grave. Mom and Henry haven't completely reconciled. The two of them are still in a state of awkwardness, and the mother can't get over it. She refuses to talk to anyone the whole day. So she agreed to my suggestion without thinking twice. It was not because she was thinking about the man who once loved her deeply, but because if she went to visit the grave of another man, Henry would definitely be jealous and crazy. As for her mother now, she should want to see this very much. Use another man to make Henry angry and achieve inner balance. Even if this man is dead, he can still be a tool for her to stimulate other men. Thoughts return. I looked at my mother in front of me. She was fiddling with the rose with her head down. I didn't respond because I thought it was ridiculous. Since that banquet, she not only asked someone to investigate my past experiences, but also had a conversation with Henry. Naturally, she knew that in order to supplement the family income, I was pushed into the rose bushes, and my body was covered with thorns and bleeding. I was like a bloody hedgehog. No matter which father sees this, he would probably be heartbroken to the point of bleeding, right? If that's the case, how could he still like roses? After all, those were the flowers that had caused his daughter pain. This truth is very obvious, but my mother doesn't know it. Maybe I don't care. I put my hand on my chest, and my heart, beating at this moment, will no longer have too many ups and downs because of the woman in front of me. Even though we have the same blood flowing in our bodies. But at my father's grave, I still want to ask, when you left, did you ever think about me and my father? My mother was stunned, looking as if she had done something wrong. She lowered her head and said nothing. Is this question difficult to answer? Actually, I don't care. But there is someone who has been thinking about it for his entire life, so I have to ask for him. Mom looked up at the photo on the tombstone and couldn't help shedding tears. Still looking extremely innocent. It seemed as if she was the victim. When I left, I really just wanted to spend the last time with Henry. But I didn't expect him to lie to me, so The unfinished words are ironic. I didn't ask any more questions. After all, the current answer is enough to explain the problem. I squatted in front of my father's grave. At this moment, he in the photo is still smiling at me. Don't worry, I will definitely avenge you, I said silently in my heart. I took out my cell phone again, glanced at the message Sebastian sent me, then held my mother's wrist and went down the mountain with her. We have finished sweeping the tombs. It's still early. Let's go back to the capital now. Having money is really a very convenient thing. But in just 2 hours we returned to the imperial capital. The exclusive driver was waiting at the airport early. Mom looked at the people passing by. The man in the lead had a thick necklace around his neck and gold rings on all 10 of his fingers. The woman next to him was wearing fur and a lot of jewelry. In short, he should be very rich. My mother scoffed. I hate people who show off their wealth. Money is something outside of our body. Is it necessary to show it off like this? After saying that, she glanced at the driver who was jogging over, with some dissatisfaction in her eyes. Why are you taking so long? Do you know that the sun is very strong these days? Do you want Aria and I to get sunburned? After saying that, she pointed to the bag in her hand. Also, do you know how expensive this bag is? It can't be left in the sun all the time. You came so late. If the bag gets damaged, can you afford to pay for it? The driver apologized repeatedly, almost kneeling on the ground, and only then did my mother stop saying anything. Forget it, forget it. Who made me so soft-hearted? I won't do it again. After saying that, she reached out and touched her face, muttering, I have to take good care of my skin when I get home. Witnessing all this, I couldn't help but laugh. Ironic, isn't it? The cell phone rang again. I suppressed my smile and urged my mother to get in the car. I replied to messages in the car, and arrived at the community within the planned time. The car drove all the way in and stopped in the yard. The driver got out of the car first, then opened the door on my mother's side, and she walked down slowly. I followed her, and as we walked into the villa, I saw Sebastian, who was returning home at the same time. He nodded slightly at me. Then, the sound of porcelain breaking was suddenly heard from the second floor. The moment her mother looked up, Ella Baker pushed open the door. Her clothes were a little messy. She stood in the corridor on the second floor and looked down at her mother. The bag in my mother's hand fell to the ground. At this moment, she could no longer maintain her dignity as a lady. Her expression was distorted, and she pointed at Ella Baker and cursed, Why are you in my house? Why are you here? Are you trying to seduce Henry? How old are you and you still do this? Aren't you ashamed? Ella Baker smiled and walked down the stairs step by step, deliberately exposing the red marks on her neck. His eyes challenged him. If you must dig deep, then tell me, who is the shameless mistress? Mila, right, do you really think you are a human being just because you have been called Mrs. King for several years? You are living with another man even before you have divorced. Indeed, there are few women in this world who can compare to you. After saying that, she bent down to pick up the high heels thrown on the ground, twisting her waist and walking out step by step, like a victorious general, extremely high profile. As for my mother, her eyes immediately turned red and she rushed upstairs. Then I saw Henry, who was sleeping soundly on the bed with his clothes also torn in disarray. She sneered. Men really can't be trusted. After saying that, she turned and ran out, without caring at all about me standing at the stairs. Don't stop me. She reached out and pushed hard, but fortunately I had experience and had grabbed the railing in advance. Mom jogged, crying as she ran out of the villa. Sebastian and I just watched. No one said anything to stop her, and no one went out to look for her. After a long while, Sebastian spoke up. Henry's only weakness is your mother. Knowing that you went to the Star City Cemetery, he didn't go to the company today. He locked himself in his room and drank alone. I specially sent him drugged wine and called Ella Baker. As you expected, he ran away from home again. There is really nothing new about this. I didn't say anything, because at this moment the voice in my mind was screaming wildly. Frankly speaking, I am not from this world. As a strategist, the purpose of coming to the world of novels is to allow the heroine of the abusive novel to have her own life, and no longer be burdened by emotions. And this heroine is Mila Wright, my mother. But there was a bug in the system. I was supposed to be just an ordinary person, but somehow I became Mila Wright's daughter. Mila Wright awakened first, married Alexander, who was also an ordinary person in this world, and gave birth to me. The system was happy the day I was born. Although it was clearly an emotionless robot, it still wiped away tears of relief, and even its voice was choked with sobs when it spoke. Host, you don't know that finally there is a girl who is brave enough to resist this fucked up fate. I would like to talk to it. But at that time I could only babble and be a little baby who could only cry. I thought Mila Wright was truly awakened. In the real world I am an orphan living in a daze. When I was hit by a car, the system found me and said that it could give me a chance to be reborn, as long as I could enter the world of novels and help those tragic heroines to be reborn. I don't want to live, but I think it would be interesting to help others. So I agreed. I didn't expect that I would be so lucky. When he came to complete the first task, he met the self-awakened heroine. The system says, I can stay in this world, be an ordinary girl, have the love of my parents, and live an ordinary life. So, I really put myself in the role and treated them as my parents. Similarly, I naturally hate this irresponsible mother to the extreme. But unfortunately, she is the heroine of this world and the target of my mission. Host, you should understand. Your mission is to make Mila Wright happy. Although this is different from our original intention, she is very happy now that she is with Henry. If you sabotage it, not only will you fail to complete the mission, you will also be backlashed, and in serious cases you will die completely. Having known the system for many years, I know that it is not speaking up for Mila Wright, but to keep me alive. Only by completing the task can I have a healthy body. What I am doing now is undoubtedly contrary to my original intention, and will be punished by the rules. But, system, I don't regret it. There are some people I just want dead. I stayed in bed for 2 days feeling severe pain all over my body. This was the punishment for the setback in mission progress. As for Mila Wright, she ran far enough this time. Henry woke up and ran out in panic, but had a hard time finding her. This time it will probably take several months to find her. Sebastian was very happy when he said this, because as long as Henry is not around, he can enter the king group and then devour it bit by bit with his own abilities. As for me, I also have shares and have a certain say. This was the concession Henry made after Mila Wright and Henry had a fight last time. It's not because I'm so important, but Mila Wright said, Aria is my child with another man, but she is my blood. If you really love me, you can give some of your shares to Aria to prove your sincerity. Henry, do you dare? He dares. A business tycoon who knew how important shares were, still gave me some of his shares because of a word from his lover. For the male protagonist in a romance novel, career is just an embellishment on the road to pursuing his wife. But for Sebastian and I, this is the stairway to revenge. We will climb up step by step and then kick down all the annoying people. This time it took 3 full months. Sebastian worked hard to control the group, And since I was still in my third year of high school, I had to spend most of my time in school, but privately, I also used the shares in my hands to turn the King Group upside down. Aria Hernandez, don't forget that we are still working together. Sebastian came to me and was very angry because I had just ruined 2 projects of the company. But I still have that indifferent attitude. We are working together to bring them down. But I never promised you that I would not do anything to the King Group. Sebastian laughed angrily. Aria, if you don't understand business, you can give me the shares and I will transfer the money to you. Or you can just take the money and be a director peacefully. As for the projects in the company, you'd better not touch them. What a joke. He's just a collaborator. How could I possibly listen to him? So, I ruined several projects again. Old Man King was very angry. He wanted to kill me, but he couldn't do it because he was concerned about his precious son. In the end, they had no choice but to send everyone to find Henry and ask him to come back to take charge of the situation. 4th month and 5 days. Henry and Mila Wright, holding hands, appeared at the doorstep together. 9. Henry returned, and when he saw the King Group that was destroyed by me, he was actually very angry. But Mila Wright had just been coaxed into submission, and as her only daughter, if I were to criticize her too harshly at this time, it would definitely lead to a breakdown in the relationship between the two of us again. For the overbearing CEO in romance novels, love is always above everything else. So, he just looked at me with a cold face and told me to be quiet when no one was around. I ignored him and even smiled at him provocatively. When he was furious to the extreme, she turned to Mila Wright and acted out a drama of deep mother-daughter love, leaving him with no place to vent his anger. As for Sebastian, he was given important tasks twice in a row. Even if Henry was unwilling, he still hurt Old Man King's heart. Old Man King felt guilty about his only grandson Sebastian, so he took a tough stance and allowed him to gain a firm foothold in the group. As the male protagonist, Henry is very capable at work, beyond my imagination. I've done so much. If it was someone else, this company would definitely not be saved. But I didn't expect Henry to. I didn't finish my words, and the system and I fell silent together. Host, fate cannot be violated. Henry has the aura of a protagonist, and you are destined to lose to him. Yeah, I sneered, then turned my attention to Mila Wright. If the protagonist's halo is very powerful, then we as passersby are destined to be unable to defeat them in the slightest. What if the protagonists fight with each other? Host, do you want to die? The system was a little anxious, but I ignored it and took out my phone to send a message to Sebastian. Help me check some people and send me the information and express delivery as soon as possible. In response, the other party quickly replied with an okay gesture. 10. 3 nights later, I gave Mila Wright a bottle of essential oils I had mixed. Mom, I heard that you haven't been sleeping well these days, so I specially went to learn how to mix those essential oils. Apply some before going to bed so that you can sleep better at night. The light yellow essential oil in the glass bottle looks very beautiful under the light. Mom took it, her eyes welling up. Aria, you still care about your mother the most. I smiled and said nothing, then went upstairs with my mother. But halfway up the stairs, the aunt from my family came straight over with the express delivery in her hand. Aria, someone sent you something. I reached out and took it. There was no information on it. I opened it in front of my mother. Inside were some documents and photos. The photos are proof of the bullying my father and I suffered over the years. Not only that, in the years before that, when Mila Wright and her father got married and had a daughter and lived a happy life, Henry and Ella Baker were also dating as boyfriend and girlfriend, going to restaurants together and staying in hotels together. There are always some intimate actions that hurt Mila Wright's heart. Mom, these might have been done intentionally by someone else. I pretended to explain for Henry, but Mom got angry and threw the essential oil in her hand to the ground. We were standing at the stairs. The glass bottle contained essential oil, which was broken into pieces and spilled all over the stairs. However, against the backdrop of the floor, only a thin layer of water stains could be seen. There was a commotion and Henry, who was working in the study, came out. He saw the photo in my hand at a glance. She was immediately furious and raised her hand to accuse me. Aria Hernandez, you really have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. Just like your father, you want to break up my family. My father, Alexander, was a thorn in his heart that could never be removed. So I deliberately provoked him. If you have any dissatisfaction with me, you can scold me. But Dad is the best dad in the world. He will never do anything to steal someone's wife, nor will he be a villain behind someone's back. Henry, who is more shameless? Hearing this, he became very angry and originally just wanted to push me. But I used the force and fell to the ground immediately. His right hand stabbed hard into the broken glass, and blood instantly flowed all over the floor. Ah, Mom, it hurts. I looked up at Mila Wright, and the pain was already bringing tears to my eyes. Mila Wright, who was already angry, saw the wound on my hand and combined it with all the contents in the document. With the usual temper of the heroine in novels, she immediately started to wrestle with Henry. Henry, not only did you betray me, you even dared to hit my daughter. It was called a scuffle, but in reality Henry didn't dare to fight back and could only passively defend himself. I was sitting on the ground at a very tricky angle. Leaning against the railing, he kept reaching out to pull at Henry and Mila Wright's trouser legs, bringing the two of them closer to the stairs without them noticing. And then, I don't know who took a step back first, and the moment he stepped on the stairs, the essential oil on the ground was extremely slippery, and the whole person leaned back due to inertia. Another person reached out to pull him, and finally both of them rolled down the stairs. There was greasy essential oil and broken glass on the stairs. When all the sounds stopped, only two people could be seen lying on the ground at the bottom, with a lot of blood on their foreheads. Ah! The aunt screamed and took out her cell phone, trembling as she tried to call the police. But Sebastian showed up first. He stopped the other party and surrounded the villa with all the people he brought to ensure that the news could not be leaked. Then he slowly wasted time and finally made a phone call and sent the person to the hospital. As for me, a hurt little girl, of course I could only sit on the ground and cry. 11. In the hospital, I was bandaging the wound in the office. Henry and Mila Wright, as the male and female protagonists, were not seriously injured. As long as they could be sent to the hospital in time, everything could be saved. But it was delayed. Not only was there a delay, the Baker family also had a large industry in the medical field. Many private hospitals across the country were all under Ella Baker's name. What happens on the operating table is invisible to everyone, and it is actually very easy to take a person's life. By the time Mr. King heard the news and rushed over, the death notices of Henry and Mila Wright had already been announced. Old Man King dropped the cane in his hand and fell to the ground, as if he had aged more than 10 years in an instant. But I don't feel sorry for people like this at all. If he had known what was going on, he would not have gotten entangled with another woman while he already had a wife. He would never drive his wife away because of his illegitimate child. Even the son he raised lost his life because of his indulgence in turning a blind eye. All in all, he got his comeuppance. Sebastian's eyes were red, but he couldn't help laughing, looking like he had gotten his revenge. He walked up to me, his eyes gentle. Aria, this is all going to end. Yeah. I looked down at the wound that had just been bandaged, my eyes ferocious. From beginning to end. I never said that their death would be the end of my revenge. 12. The boss behind this private hospital is Ella Baker. Old Man King is a smart man and he must know what this means. He would go crazy if his beloved son died on the operating table. But the Baker family is no pushover. In the contest between the two big families, even if the King family wins in the end, it will suffer heavy losses. Not only that, the shares that Henry transferred to me before, plus the shares I inherited after Mila Wright's death, are enough for me to have a say in the King Group. Aria, we can join forces and create a new business empire. Sebastian's eyes were full of ambition. But he didn't know that earlier, I had handed over everything we had done, including all the evidence, to Mr. King. Are you crazy? I laughed. Yeah, I'm crazy. Sebastian, is he another good guy? He hated Henry and had thought about destroying Mila Wright to make him suffer. Unfortunately, Mila Wright was too well protected, so he set his sights on me. The glass that suddenly appeared wanted to destroy my face. But Henry didn't dare to kill me because he didn't dare to take the risk and was afraid that Mila Wright would really hate him for the rest of her life. So, who personally gave the order for those accidents that cost me my life? Sebastian, if you want to kill me, don't blame me for scheming against you. Old Man King loves his son Henry very much. Even though he only has one direct grandson left, it does not mean that the King family will no longer have other younger generations. Old Man King was extremely angry and stripped him of all his power as punishment. As for me, Old Man King hated me just as much and even found some people who probably wanted to kill me. I know the rules of the novel world too well. Therefore, I got all the important documents in Henry's study earlier, and with the shares I have now, there are many people in the capital who want to take over the king's business. So, they were all very happy that I created this opportunity for them. The King family was already badly damaged, and with me as their accomplice, and no younger and more promising members in the family, this time, the King family was doomed to collapse. When the system said those people were coming to kill me, I had already arrived at the seaside and was sitting on the beach, watching the seawater being hit by the waves. Mila Wright is gone, and you are destined not to live long. The system sounded a little sad when it said this. I nodded. I know. You told me at the beginning that if I couldn't complete the mission, I might be wiped out. But I don't regret it, not at all. In a trance, a man with ordinary looks but a gentle smile walked out of the sea. He held out his hand to me and chuckled. Aria, Daddy will take you home. I nodded, ignored the roars of the men in black behind me, then held my father's hand and went home with him. Teen. The wind blew and I vaguely heard a sigh. 3,000 small worlds, countless cycles of suffering. The voice asked, do you regret it? I shook my head. I, Aria Hernandez, never regret anything.